From the St. Francis Yacht Club in San Francisco, this is the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, hosted by Ron Young.
Welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon, live from the virtual grill room of the St. Francis Yacht Club. The St. Francis Yacht Club is renowned for organizing some of the finest sailboat, kite, and windsurfing racing in the world. During the quasi-COVID year of 2022, the Executive Race Committee recruited 459 volunteers, worked 1,111 volunteer days during 88 race days, which enabled 5,000 sailors to race in 955 watercraft. In normal years, the ERC's 18 subcommittees, each with 3 to 6 members, recruit and manage all of our volunteers, with the assistance from club staff and a professional race director and coordinator. During 2022, however, both professional positions were vacant. Thus, the entire shebang was managed by the ERC and their navy of volunteers. Lawson Willard, chairman of the Executive Race Committee of the St. Francis Yacht Club, welcome to the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.
Ron, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the Executive Race Committee. There are 4 major committees at the St. Francis, which are membership, house, and Tinsley. And then there's Executive Race Committee, sometimes called ERC.
You're in charge of the whole shebang at St. Francis Yacht Club. When was the very first time you can remember being on a boat of any kind? And what kind of boat was it and where?
I think one of the first boats I ever was on was a Sunfish in Long Island Sound. And I was probably about 9 or 10 years old. And so that was the first time.
Where on Long Island Sound?
I was at the Shinnecock Yacht Club in Quag, Long Island. And then I sailed most of my childhood at the Watercraft Club in Stonington, Connecticut.
Give me 5 spots on the timeline from there to here in the sailing world.
So I sailed through high school, and then I went to college in Colorado and did not sail for a number of years, and then moved out to San Francisco, where I joined the club and started sailing NARS. I think my first night out on the water was with Dewey Hines, and it was blowing 35 knots in an ebb tide. And it was fantastic. It was great. And then I sailed on Zamazan. I was lucky enough to sail with Vice Commodore Perkins and his brothers in the big boat series. And I've sailed 105s, NARS, pretty much everything. So it's been a great run.
Now, professionally, you're an architect. How is it you juggle your volunteer responsibilities with drawing lines and conceiving of buildings in your professional world?
You know, an architect is trained to deal with a lot of sort of different types of information, and it set me up for, working in the race office over the last year. There's a lot going on there, and it comes from all directions. And so I was lucky enough to sort of be pre-trained for this opportunity.
So, as I said in the opening, usually you have a couple of professional staff, but the last year, the COVID restricted year, which was hard enough with those conditions, you guys ran the whole thing with volunteers. So show us the race committee and how you managed to do this many races each year.
So this is a presentation, which is sort of a combination of a board presentation and a race committee kickoff, which we usually present to the board once a year and have a race committee kickoff in January every year. What I'll talk about today: program overview, subcommittees, regatta race days, peer comparisons to other yacht clubs, issues and opportunities facing the Executive Race Committee. This is the Commodore's boat, big boat. And this is another photo of big boat. One thing that falls underneath the Executive Race Committee is a junior program, which is robust. When my son actually started in the junior program, I think there were about 5 juniors, and now it's a program of over 150 kids under the age of 18. And they sail from RSs, 29ers, Club 420s, lasers, and wing foils. They just started last year. And the idea of the program is to teach lifelong sailors, not to teach one platform and sort of limit your opportunities with one type of sailboat. We have a learn to sail program, learn to race. We have for the intro, it's RS Tivas and FIVAs. We have windsurfing, we have lasers, we have quests at Tinsley, the high school program. We have 8 high schools which participate in the high school program, which is different than most Southern California high schools. We have a C420 race team. We have introduction to keelboats. with the J22s. And throughout the summer, we have both city and Tinsley camps. This is a photo of one of the wingers right next to one of the tankers. This is another photo of the race committee, 2021 Rolex Big Boat Series. This is the race committee for the 2021 Rolex Big Boat Series. This is how many volunteers it takes just to run that 4-day regatta on the water. This is a laser start on the city front. The mission of the St. Francis is to inspire boating both internationally and regionally. So the race program has a mission of inspiring boating both internationally and regionally. We honor camaraderie, sportsmanship, and traditional maritime heritage in San Francisco. To meet this mission statement, we have, instead of 14, it's now grown to 18 subcommittees. Our goal is to have excellent regattas, develop volunteers, plan for future regattas, and stay within our budget. We also have a challenge program, which sends teams both internationally and nationally to compete in regattas. This is a photo of one of our first wing foil regattas called No Strings Attached, which was last year. This year, we've grown it to a Pacific Coast Championship, and we're hoping to hold a world championship in the next couple of years. So this is a quick video of last year's regatta, No Strings Attached. It was one of the first wing foil regattas in the country. In April, we're going to host the Pacific Coast Championships. In the next couple of years, we're going to host the World Champions.
I've been racing here at San Francisco since 1991, and they've been supporting anything wind related, not just sailboats. We have a great venue here, and most people are kind of hanging out over next door at the Crissy Field Beach. We'll see how it goes. Let's just pray for wind.
We'd like to see a couple of riders come out maybe in 5 or 10 minutes.
Roger that.
In terms of conditions, yesterday was a very challenging classic early spring day with a lot of big holes, a lot of wind shifts, very, very gusty. We had some 12-knot conditions, we had some 28-knot conditions, we had sort of everything.
We had like 30 people and just fun racing where everyone's kind of learning what gear they need to use, learning how to deal with starts and other wings around them. It's definitely the early phases and we're figuring it out, but I think that's the fun of it.
St. Francis has always had an approach where they want to recognize what the future holds.
Here at San Francisco, there's pretty extreme conditions. I've been doing this for a while and foiling against them and with them. It's a lot of fun to race people older than me.
It's super cool that so many people are participating. No matter how good they are, they just want to participate in the race. The goal of this weekend is to go out there and have fun.
It was kind of interesting trying to figure it out with everybody going at the same time. It's probably my favorite spot, like anywhere in the world, to wing.
With an upwind leg and then a downwind kind of reaching course. For everyone here, there was a discussion. We had never done that. Very few people had even lined up going upwind like you would when you're training on a race kite. We just don't do that here. So it was a whole new thing. Everyone was learning, the race committee and the fleet.
It's an addictive sport. It gives like just enough to keep you coming back. I've fallen like 1,000 times before I get like the hint of getting the new maneuver, the hint of getting a jive.
In terms of the group, it's great to see people from not just all over the Bay Area, but we've got kids from Hawaii. We've got a ton of great support from the club that really wants to be engaged in this sport.
Race committee put together an awesome event and made it safe and ran super smoothly.
There were tons of people here that are just learning how to do the maneuvers and whatnot, and they were having fun. There's different packs around the course of different skill levels, and you jump into a pack and you're going to have a battle. No matter how you're feeling, your skills are. It's fun.
This is another photo from Big Boat. One of the things that we try to do every year is get grade 1 regattas. This year coming up, we have the 505 World Championships. We have the U.S. Open Sailing Series, which it started 2 years ago. It's the build-up to the 2028 Olympics. Next year, we have the U.S. Open and the Big Boat Series, and then following in 2025, we also have US Open and Big Boat. This is a photo of the kickoff for the race committee volunteers. This is usually starts in the end of January, and then we have training classes throughout the year. This is one of our grade 1 pitch decks, which we send out different classes throughout the world leading up to our centennial in 2027. We're going to try to get back the TP52s and some other classes which are racing in the Mediterranean and have not been out west or to the United States recently. This is J22 team race. The subcommittee overview. This is basically a breakdown of how many different committees we have. We have sustainability, we have match racing, we have club boats, we have dinghies, we have wing foils, we have judges and umpires, publicity, race rules and measurement. We have a junior liaison. We have race skills development, challenges, race management, race skills development, sponsorship, fleet outreach, and technology. So it's a wide sort of assortment and areas of focus that we look at. One of the fun things that we get to do, and sort of we'll call it our off season, as we have several nights at the club for films. Sharon Green was kind enough to come to us in January and preview her new movie, and she comes out to Big Boat every couple of years. So it was really a treat to have her at the club. We also are hosting the screening for the International Film Festival. We had the first one last year, and then again in February 23rd, we're having the second preview. This is some of the stars which were racing last year in the Calvin Page Regatta. One thing that's impressive about the race program is the number of days and the number of race course days which our volunteers go out. This is Club 420s. This is basically a chart of the number of regattas which we've had in the past 6 years. In 2017, we had 40, and you see that number coming across. And then in 2020, we had one match race regatta due to COVID, and now we are slowly building back. The reason the number is 42 in 2023 is we have the 505 World Championships, which is a 10-day regatta, which is taking up some of our time. This is a J22 match race. One of the things that we do track, the Executive Race Committee tracks member versus non-members participation in regattas. And we want to know how many members are out there, and are we reaching out to the larger community? So, just like the regatta days, it was building up to 2020, fell down in 2020 due to COVID, and now we're slowly building back up. So, our members make up about a third of the participants in our regattas. This year, we're going to start talking to crews and figuring out how many of the crew are members of the club. This is actually a photo of the J22s coming back in the harbor. This is another photo from Big Boat. This is a graph which covers 2022 and 2023 race days. You can sort of see the comparison between last year and then this coming up year. In March, we have one more regatta. April, we have 10 more. These are race days. Each month, we're increasing it substantially for 2023. This is the number of race days throughout the year. So in 2022, we had 88 race days. 2023, we have 130. So the number has gone up significantly. It's another Club 420. Number of regatta days. And so this is a comparison to our peer clubs. And so down on the bottom, we have St. Francis, we have San Francisco Yacht Club, we've got the Richmond Yacht Club, Encinal, New York, San Diego, Annapolis, Newport Harbor, Seattle, and Southern. And so we like to see how we compare for the number of race days. This is a C420 regatta. It's probably looks like fall dinghy. Race course days, try to figure out how many are strictly racing, how many are juniors, how many are team race and match race, or J22s. And these are actually race course days, which is a little bit different than a regatta day. And the way the race course day is calculated is it's the number of days of the regatta times the number of courses. So at Big Boat, each day we have 3 race courses. So that would actually be counted as 12 race course days. And that's how we compare ourselves to these other yacht clubs. This is a start during Big Boat. This is an interesting graph because it's the 2022 volunteer regattas and race days sort of all put together. And you can see in September, which is the Rolex Big Boat Series, we have 270 volunteer days. And so that's the number of volunteers times the number of days that they're out there, which is significant. Another photo from Big Boat. So 505s, they're coming back in late September for the World Championship. These are some of our assets. We have 2 signal boats. We have 6 ribs. We have now 13 J22s. We have 1 J80, and we've got a bunch of umpire boats, which are also used as junior coach boats. And these are the stars, issues and opportunities. Last year, we transitioned from ORR to ORC in the rating system. We used that for the Aldo Alessio and the PKS Regatta in August, and then we used it also again during the Big Boat Series. Anytime you change rating systems, there are always some challenges, but we have tried with community outreach. I'm going to do another one with owners and pros and crew, just so people know what we're doing. One of the biggest things we're working on this year is winning the Challenges. And Challenges is a program where we send teams to other yacht clubs to compete in team racing and in match racing. We haven't done that well in the past, but this year it is a priority to do well. Our race committee volunteer development, we have a PRO program. We have a program for judges, umpires. We have started to, today, there is a Mark Set drivers class. We have a couple of those. So any of you that want to go down and learn how to drive one of the ribs, great opportunity to get out there. We're basically trying to get as much information to the volunteers as possible. Thanks to Susan Rooney, we have a strong website and social media program. Our junior program, like I said before, was small 20 years ago, and it's at capacity today, both in the city and up at Tinsley. The clubhouse lease has obligations, which offers a fantastic opportunity for outreach to our local community. Our long-range calendar looks at grade 1 events 3-4 years out. One of the classes which has come on strong in the last couple of years is the classics. And we're really trying to get more and more classics to come to Big Boat and to other classic regattas around the bay. It's another photo from Big Boat. In summary, St. Francis has a world-class venue. We have, in the last several years, gotten almost all our regattas to be sustainable regattas. We've reached gold level on almost every one of them, and Big Boat has reached the platinum level, which is great. We have hired a race director, who is going to start in the next several weeks. We are looking for a race coordinator this time. We have fantastic race committee resources and volunteers. We have a dynamic race calendar, which changes from wing foils all the way to the classics, every size boat in between. We have a well-established junior program, which other clubs throughout the United States are trying to emulate. We have a strong J22 and a J80 program. We're focused on volunteer development and training. We are truly leaders in yachting, both regionally, nationally, and internationally. I'd also like to just throw out a big thank you to Susan Rooney for helping me in the last year. I couldn't have done it without her. She has a tremendous grasp on the history of the club and helped guide me in the direction to be successful in 2022 and in part of 2023. We are looking forward to getting a race director on board and having him hire a race coordinator for 2023.
So you said a moment ago the new race director will be joining the staff soon. Tell us a little bit about that person and when will they be?
His name is Felix, and he is coming from Germany. He ran keelboat for 11 years. So that basically includes, I think, 11 race courses and something like 450 volunteers. So Big Boat might be relatively easy for him, but there are other challenges to test his skills.
So Lawson, how many hours a week do you spend as chairman of ERC on committee activities?
From 25 to 30 hours a week, various aspects. I'm hoping once the race director and the race coordinator get on board, that number of hours will decrease. One thing I've tried to do in 2021 and in 2022 is to have subcommittees take over a lot of responsibilities, which they have. And there are subcommittees which have taken off, one of them being race committee development. And so that group has really done a fantastic job in the last couple of years, and they're very excited for 2023.
So race development is a key part of your responsibility. I remember when Norm Devant was the race developer inside the Yacht Club, and he had connections to professional series racers around the world. He's constantly talking about bringing X or Y event and boats to our venue, to St. Francis. Talk a little bit about that function, how it works, and it's a pitch deck and so on.
Well, what Susan does, Susan Rooney is the subcommittee chair for the grade 1 events. And she and I and a few other people put together the pitch decks, and we go to different classes. But one of the regattas that we're starting to look at in the next couple of years is the ORC World Championships. And so we're talking with them currently. Our new race director coming in knows a lot about ORC and actually brought the ORC World Championships to Kiel. So we're looking forward to that. Other grade 1 events, we were lucky enough to get the 505 Worlds this year. We're looking in the next couple of years to get the RS Terras and the RS FIVA World Championships. And so what we do is we identify different classes that would like to come to the West Coast and sail with the Golden Gate Bridge as their backdrop and consistent breeze in a flood tide.
What's the average wind strength through our sailing season, and how do you break it out throughout the year?
So typically is about 10 to 12 knots in January to about March. Then it grows to 25 to 30 from March to mid-August, and then drops to sort of 15 to 20 through October. Most classes like to come, premier month is October. That is everybody wants to come to San Francisco in October. July is sort of a slower month because the wind is very, very strong. And it's, if you're not used to it, it's difficult to race in it.
The members who don't race often comment about and want to know, is ERC cash positive? Does it cost the club money? Just like they ask about Tinsley, just like they ask about other parts of the club. What's the level of support that the ERC gets annually from the club?
So they're actually, all our regattas zero out at the end of the year. So we don't make money off regattas. If we are plus, we put those funds back into each regatta. If we're negative, look for sponsorship and other ways of equaling the budget. The race department does not make money simply because we have a very limited revenue stream. And the revenue stream comes from entry fees, educational opportunities, but it's somewhat minimal. So there is a negative at the end of every year. And so the club does sponsor the race program at St. Francis.
How do our junior sailors do in matriculation to great schools? It used to be said years ago that the fastest track to the Ivy League was sailing versus soccer or football or baseball or basketball, which are massive sports, but didn't necessarily tie to GDP. Sailors tend to be on the brighter side because it's a very tactical game. So where do our high school sailors go for college?
Our high school sailors are very, very well-educated and smart group of kids. They're going to Ivy League schools. They're going to second-tier schools. They also go to some of the best sailing schools in the country. There have been kids on national championship teams for years. Sailing is one of those tricky things that might or might not get you into college, but you need the grades. And so it's not going to get you into college. It's going to help you, but it's not going to get you in.
Talk about new technologies that the race committee or the ERC is using and new technologies you see on the horizon.
What we're sort of experimenting with, and we did it a couple of years ago with the kiteboard racing, was to give them trackers. And so we were able to track them around the race course, which in kiteboarding could mean that you start in front of the St. Francis and you go to the Berkeley Pier, and then you might go to the Richmond Bridge, and then you might or might not come back to the St. Francis. So it's good to know where those sailors are. We are looking at having some technology on some of the boats to see if there are any OCSs, but that technology hasn't really come to fruition. So it's more of tracking than it is starts and finishes.
You mentioned sponsorship a bit ago. Rolex sponsors the Big Boat Series. Does the race committee have an appetite for other sponsorship by other organizations? And if a corporation wanted to consider sponsoring races at St. Francis, who should they contact?
They should contact the race office or myself. It's our job to identify those corporations or individuals that would like to sponsor a regatta or a particular race. And then, what can we do for them? Can they come down and have, basically have a lunch in the starting line room or the dining room and watch racing? One of the events coming up in April is the Women's World Match Racing Tour. And that's a perfect opportunity for members and non-members to come down and see some of the top women match racers in the world compete.
You have an army of volunteers. Give us kind of a day in the life of a race volunteer who's helping out with the ERC. Let's say it's a Marquette boat. What time would they come to work, as we call it, and give us their kind of view of the day and when they get back?
Usually show up about 8:30, 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning for a 2-day regatta. They basically get a briefing from the principal race officer and the race director. They pick up their lunches and they head down to the dock to equip their ribs, basically marks, anchors, flags, could be all sorts of things. And you head out on the water about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and you're out on the water till about 3 o'clock. And then you come back in, basically clean up your boat, and then you head off to the regatta social. And so that basic schedule will be for Saturday and Sundays.
Talk about the crew on a Marquette boat. How many people are on each boat, et cetera?
So on a Marquette boat, there's the boat captain who's responsible for driving the boat. You have 2 or 3 other volunteers out there who will fake the lines, make sure the anchors are ready to go, make sure the marks are actually tied to the line with the anchor. And so you don't end up throwing the anchor over without the line connected. And then once the race gets going, let's say the Windward Mark boat will record mark roundings. And so that will be then transmitted back to the race office. They have that data if there's a protest, which needs that sort of data. They also used for wind readings throughout the day. Those are recorded and sent back to the principal race officer on the signal boat.
What's the crew on the signal boat? And can you just talk about the different roles, from the PRO being on there to the different roles on the signal boat?
So the signal boat is the primary boat out on the race course for both starts and sometimes finishes. On the signal boat is the principal race officer, who is basically in charge of everybody out on the race course. Then you have a deputy PRO out there looking over some of the signal boat crew and then disseminating some of the information which is coming back to the signal boat from Marquette boats. You have a recorder on there who records finishes. You have several flag people who put up the signals for the starts and for the finishes. They have placards for the different race courses, and then mark roundings is the other piece of information.
And talk about how the signal boat communicates with the Marquette boats and other boats on the water.
So most of the communication between a signal boat and the Marquette boats are on VHF. And then if there's any information such as scores, wind readings, or any other information that needs to go from the Marquette boat or the signal boat back to the race office, that's typically photographed and then sent by cell phone back to the race office.
So years ago, maybe 20-ish, St. Francis pioneered foiling on races on the water. There had been foiling that was recreational. And then as Johnny Heineken was coming up, many of us were enthusiastic that we actually had the first race in racing. It feels like the same thing is happening with wing sailing. Your no strings attached regatta. What a fun theme. How does the ERC view emerging technologies in racing? What role do we want to have in introducing these new technologies to racers and audiences?
So the wing foilers just sort of grew organically, as kiteboarding did on Chrissy Field. And then somebody said, hey, could we have a race on a Friday evening? And so I think it was 2021 in May, we had first wing foil regattas. And there were big wave surfers from Mavericks who asked, are there any rules? So it was a great mix of sailors. And then from that, we had a regatta last year in April called No Strings Attached. And then that, as I said earlier, has grown into the Pacific Coast Championships. And that's called the Spring Wingding.
You've got a very exciting committee. If volunteers want to participate, who should they contact and how?
The best way to volunteer is to either contact me directly. The way to sign up is actually on the club website under sailing, and then it's under race committee. And then you sign up through service and you set up an account and you put in your interests. And then also I would look at club calendar for race committee training opportunities, which will happen throughout the year. But, we're always looking for new volunteers, and it's a great way to get out on the water. And you can come out for 1 day, you can come out for 2, you can come out for 4, you can come out for 56, as one volunteer did last year. So.
Wasn't it Don Weinecke who set the high bar last year being on the water? And you guys gave an award for that, which was great. Great to see you.
Don won the race committee award last year. He was PRO for most of the kiting, the wing foiling, and some of the windsurf events. I mean, he was out there morning, noon, and night. I mean, it was amazing. And, there were scoring inquiries, which went on for a while, and Don stuck with every single one of them till the end. And that sort of dedication is why he is one of the best volunteers that St. Francis has.
Lawson Willard, chairman of the ERC, thanks very much for sharing your insights with the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.
Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Wednesday Yachting Luncheon.